instead of the chief of the department, how can one oppose the superior officer's approach? But that just puts the question on the back burner first, and the answer must be found out soon after. In any case, the Imperial Army could not retreat. You're leaving? Well, think about it too. Good luck to you all, but before that I almost forgot to give you a piece of advice. 5 special magical creatures have been found to be present, so you should be more careful. You mean special creatures? Right. There have been no reports of successful crusades, but must be exceptional individuals. Very tricky, and several companions have been taken out by them. There's the red slime, the golden skeleton swordsman, the ghost of death, the monster moving armor that looks like a heavily armored knight, and the small, powerful dragon wraith. Those dreaded monsters seem to be lurking in this area of the floor. They are an extraordinary presence mixed in with the magic puppets. The soldier concluded by saying, "You might die in the first place." The survivors from the upper floors took this advice to heart and moved on. What exactly lies ahead awaits them will be known shortly. The general soldiers of the Imperial Army gradually went down. Not knowing that going any further was their demise, the whole team pushed forward without interruption, continuously. The maze at the 61st to 70th floors. Not yet? We haven't won yet. I'm sorry. It seems that this operation has also failed. Hearing this in return, the soldiers of the general were in despair. There is a gate on the 70 level. It leads to the city of the dead, the border between the world and the living. Advancing amidst a mass of demons, the soldiers of the Imperial Army strutted through the maze. It all went well at first. Right. Only in the beginning. The magical creatures that appear are all necromancers, just getting used to the stench of rotting flesh, and judging by the strength of the Imperial General's soldiers, those enemies won't let them get into a bitter fight. The first 1,000 people to enter were responsible for establishing the position. After confirming that the men behind follow, the battle will continue. Losing contact with the troops on the ground is a major defeat, but they are not completely alone. It only took a little time to wait for the rear troops to arrive, so they didn't think there would be any problems. The Imperial Army suppressed the entire layer with a wave of fury. On the first day they explored almost all of the 60th to 69th floors. The problem is on the 70th floor. For some reason, the 70 layers were a large, dry, hilly area of grass and trees. The look is hair-raising, a remnant of a battlefield that drifts with the scent of death. A huge gate loomed ahead, about the size of the one on the ground. The gate, made of skeletons, was used to guard the fortress city, which was located in the middle of the moat that protected the town. Why would such a thing be in a labyrinth? The question came to everyone's mind. There are no other entrances to the city but the main gate. Drainage facilities, universal gates, and other amenities essential to life are not available in this city. That's no wonder. None of the people who live in this metropolis are alive. It's all necromancy. At first day, the door was still closed. Even with the attempted destruction, the walls are just too thick. Not that the deceased would have been running out to make repairs, hence the delayed progress of the damage. Even if one wanted to get close, there were skeletal archers with bows on the outer wall. The Imperial superiors felt that relying on a few men to attack was too much of a stretch, so they had to wait for reinforcements to arrive. Immediately following the time came the next morning. The Imperial Army has increased in numbers to over 10,000. They began to attack the gate, which opened soundlessly before them. Then the horrifying-looking king of the dead appears. To say that he was a skeleton is not an appropriate description. This rather genteel white bone spoke in fluent human language to the general soldiers of the Imperial Army. "Welcome to my land of the dead. My name is Adalman, the Immortal King. The party is all set. Let's just have a good time. So, here we go." As soon as the king, Adalman, had declared his name, there was a sudden sense of oppression in the whole space. Following this king are a group of necromancers, as well as the dead but still brave necromancer dragon. This dragon of death let out an evil roar that felt like it was going to overwhelm the entire space. The next moment the necromancer descended from the sky and came to the door. It was the most ferocious dragon at the pinnacle of the necromorphic system, and in this instant, it bared its fangs at the Imperial army. Not only that. The gates had been opened, and legions of the undead had emerged from them one after another. The necromancers led by the necromancer chief climbed out one after another. The Imperial army had been lined up in front of the door, but the sudden battle had caused them to be in a state of confusion. The Dragon of the Dead is a Class A magical creature, which is so powerful that it is frightening to be attacked. Its attribute is immortality. There is no other means of elimination than a direct attack on the soul. The soldiers of the Empire had a high level of combat ability that they prided themselves on, but their attacks simply couldn't hurt each other, and nothing could be done in the face of such an opponent. Fall back, fall back. This is not an opponent you can beat with one blow, poof. Damn it, if you burn it all with fire. It's not working. That guy's regenerating faster than he's burning. Get out of this place. Otherwise, the spirit will be destroyed by the guy's miasma. The Imperial army is in chaos. As if in mockery of these soldiers, the dragon's jaws opened considerably. Shit. That's PFFT. The body is corroding. The corrosive spray of the death dragon poured down from high in the air, bathing those crawling on the ground. As a result, most of them were unable to resist and ended up losing their lives. That's not all. Certain people suffer from spiritual pollution due to the miasma of the necromancer, and they turn into walkers, obeying the orders of higher-order magical creatures. The so-called high-ranking magical creature here is the King of the Dead, in other words, a Dalman. The damage suffered by the Empire directly adds to the war effort for a Dalman. The tragedy of the army is more than that. It was hardly safe even to escape the threat of the necromancer. That's because some necromancers rides a necromancer horse and starts hunting down the fleeing people. The Imperial army's numbers plummeted in an instant, and 10,000 were wiped out in less than an hour. These tragedies were passed on by the few survivors to the troops who followed later. Because of these things, the 70th level raiders' battle began to become white-hot. After the next day, there were several times when the Imperial army wanted to try to rush into the 70 levels. But every time, they lose miserably. The next two fights, the second and third, were all with the same result, and things didn't get any better at all. As for the overwhelming threat posed by the necromantic dragon, even less so. Although there are only 1,000 or so necromancers, these opponents do not fatigue nor die. And they're also the threatening equivalent of an A, which is pretty high. It's unbearable that no matter how you kill, you'll still keep coming back alive. As for the long necromancer who commanded them, his strength was not even close to that of the high-ranking warriors of the Imperial army. The quality alone is also above the Imperial army, with enough combat range to overturn the numerical disadvantage. In addition to this, there is one of the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth, Albert Paladin of the Dead, under a Dalman. Even the elite of the Imperial army had no chance of winning against the army of the undead. But we will not repeat the mistakes of this campaign. Looking forward to your performance. The Imperial Army Brigadier finished his speech to the soldiers of the general. The raiders' team from the upper floors met them on the 4th day. Then they bet all their existing strength that this battle will send all the troops on this side. Plus the Imperial Army is not incompetent. The techniques used to deal with the immortals are well known from ancient times to the present. Divine magic is most effective against the enemy of mankind, the undead. Dialysis of the principles of divine magic. There has been research being done on this part, and a technique has been developed on the Imperial side that can have an effect similar to praying to God. There are veterans of this in the Imperial Army. They gathered these men from among the existing fighting forces and deployed them in various units. In this way, it will be able to resist the evil miasma and break through the so-called immortality. That's what this combat plan is all about. The army was in full formation in the hilly terrain, bringing the total number to 70,000. In contrast, Adalman's men were still less than 40,000, even counting the increased number of walkers over the past few days. Just by looking at the number of people, it looked like the Imperial army had the upper hand, and at that time, everyone thought that they would definitely win this time. Then the showdown begins. The king takes action. You guys think too much. The holy reversal. The immortal King Adalman's dominance extends to the end. As for the holy attribute that was originally their weakness, when this force covered, weakness was no longer weakness. And it was this weakness that the Imperial army relied on, their miscalculation leading to their own loss. This defeat broke the spirits of the Imperial general's soldiers. The survivors were pushed to the breaking point and started running towards the upper floors. Simply forget about the maze's breakthrough conditions. All that remains in the mind is the desire to survive, just to live. The 71st to 79th levels of the maze. Walking into this floor, the Imperials were forced to engage in a never-ending battle with an entire swarm of insects. The insects launched a fierce attack that went on and on and on. Fearing no death, they repeatedly attacked, a whole group showing absolutely no signs of interruption. Maze Day 1. The soldiers of the generals who had first begun to send in were frightened but not frightened by the onslaught of insects. They took the channel build site and processed it immediately. The gigantic insects were dozens of times bigger than ordinary bugs. Not only were they swift, but they were also very powerful. One careless glance and they'll kill and eat you in the blink of an eye. But a calm observation will reveal that each bug is not very strong, and they are endless, which means there are many magic crystals to be had. Plus the quality was good, and the look on the soldiers' faces went along with it. Well, it's not really a big deal, the soldiers think so. Changing to a normal contingent of adventurers will get more and more tired with no way to rest. Until finally there will be no way to put out your full strength and get knocked down by the magical creature. But the Imperial army has less of that layer of worry. A well-trained army comes to raid the maze, and a swarm of bugs is no match at all. No matter how many bugs there were, the numbers on the Imperial side would not lose. Change shifts when you feel tired and can always stay in top shape. As such, they gradually increased their positions and the operation went smoothly. While it's not possible to relax mentally, that's all that's wrong with saying it. On the flip side, their gains are not small. Even this floor of what can be called an insect paradise, there are still hidden rooms that are indeed prepared, such as tree caves or caverns, etc. There are powerful magical things there, but there are also treasure chests. Some soldiers even laughed at the luxurious treasures. Perhaps it was the person who opened the treasure chest and found the short sword in that room just now. A short sword with exquisite goldsmithing on top would look expensive. The performance seems to be good too, with the glow on the blade proving that the short sword is made of magic steel. Only the hilt part of the scabbard was made of items that were already expensive, and the short sword was all made of magic steel. No wonder the soldier was laughing. Upon entering this maze, it was explained to them that items such as magic crystals were to be given to the military. But something as small as a short sword was likely to turn a blind eye. Of course, after that, they are subjected to an inventory of their belongings, but considering the fact that the leader who defeated the guardian of the treasure is also a credit, then the item will definitely be given to the soldiers. The other soldiers around seemed to be envious, and everyone was thinking in their hearts, next time it will be my turn. Without such benefits to take, there would be no incentive to fight the bugs consistently in places like this. The amount of magic crystals harvested is also considerable. Normally high-purity magic crystals are rare, but you can easily get them by defeating magical creatures here. That's what I mean by making people laugh, and at this pace, there should be all kinds of added benefits. The other floors seem to be pretty much the same as far as they've heard. The more tragic ones are the floors where many people die, right? The opponent is a dead spirit and can get relatively little. But it was hard work to defeat the dead souls, in contrast. By comparison, this floor with bugs moving around is more profitable. At least the treasures obtained were satisfactory, and everyone thought that they should be able to treat this battle as a fond memory when they returned, and the delusion of happiness swelled more and more. It started to get out of hand the next day. One soldier's eyes widened in surprise, because the head of the partner walking next to it suddenly fell to the ground. "When we get back, we'll have a good time." Looking down at his missing head on the ground, the soldier had a look of dismay on his face. The words that didn't make it came to a halt in mid-sentence, and the mouth just opened. Blood spurted upwards, as if spraying water on the surrounding partners. "Hey, hey!" There were screams from the soldiers. Still talking to the other party just now, the sudden and tragic death made people momentarily unresponsive. However, the soldier was lucky. It's not too late to keep thinking, he's already been chosen to be the next victim. The head dropped with a clatter. Like the soldier who was turned into a corpse in the beginning and could no longer speak, the man died in the moment. The place where they died was the 79th floor. This place is so full of flowers that everyone thought this floor was a safe zone until just now. Ah ha ha ha. The day of waiting was worth it. Because there was a lot of prey gathered around and made a point of running over themselves. "Thank you for your hard work. Just die for us and become fodder." Those soldiers heard a clear sound. Beautiful tones resounded throughout the floor. The words came from the queen. It was the wonderful voice of Apito, the bug queen, the domain guardian responsible for guarding this floor. Apito's voice transformed into a wave of chanting power that could be heard throughout the entire floor. This was to communicate the order indeed to her faithful servants. Apito was leading the Legion bees. Its true identity is a killing group formed by bees about 30 centimeters in length. They have superior supersensory abilities and will not let go of humans who are hiding their prey. The tiny transparent wings emit high circumferential waves that become terrifying blades that can easily achieve irregular high-speed maneuvers. They will approach quietly at a speed beyond the speed of sound, a silent assassination bee. If you're going to deal with Legion bees, it's useless to just have superior dynamic vision. Without going beyond the limits of the human race, it is simply impossible to discover the existence of an opponent. Without the additional skills of thinking speed and overspeed reaction, there is no way to capture the movements of your opponent. Just one alone is equivalent to a Class A disaster, and is a formidable magical creature. By the way, it is common to find only one emergency alert in the West. It would be reported to the higher units of the countries immediately, and the high-ranking knights would form a crusading force. If feasible, the Order of the Paladins will also be invited to march and conduct a massive sweeping campaign. They would first rely on the divine barrier to gather these bees together from all around, performing weakening magic or making them sluggish, indeed weakening before coming to pack. However, be prepared for sacrifice, as these magical creatures are classified as fearsome by the rules. If more than one is found, the level of danger increases dramatically. Plus, what would happen if there was a queen's rule? The answer is: the number of legionnaire bees that received Apito's orders casually exceeded 1,000. What followed was a one-sided act of torture. It's just that people who are a little more or less confident in their own hands, that level of confidence doesn't work at all. Even if you're an A-grade warrior with a certain level of strength, you'll end up like a layman. If you're too late to react, you will surely end up dead. The Imperial General soldiers gathered on this floor were all killed, and it took less than 10 minutes to go back and forth. 81st to 90th floors of the maze. It can be concluded by now. The first day was just to give them a taste of something sweet. All the surviving soldiers thought so. Those comrades in arms are gone. Everyone was killed. The monster in front of them, a monster that is as strong as a ghost. Yet they are not the only ones who are unfortunate. The same tragedy is unfolding on other floors. Everyone is fighting a desperate battle these days. Staying on their own floors, facing their own strong enemies, forced to fight battles that have no chance of winning. The 81st floor is a paradise for those magical beasts. Powerful individuals walk around and lead whole groups of people. But those are no more intelligent magical beasts. If it was a group of Imperial soldiers with 100 years of combat experience, it could be said that it would be easy to defeat them. The strength of each one should be above a B on average. They would appear in teams of 3 to 5, forcing the Imperial army into an unexpectedly bitter fight. But it wasn't enough to cause death or injury, and they managed to find the ladder. They also rendezvoused with the 82nd floor raiders team, which was pretty good for the first day's results. It would take some time to proceed at this pace, but the Imperial army thought it would be breached in a matter of days. However, when they cheat the next day, because that guy showed up, the situation suddenly turned upside down. On the 82nd floor, in the dense forest, appears a monkey with an IQ high enough to speak human language. The monkey was able to control the wind and sound and could fly through the air and call out storms. It was a pure white demon monkey. The name was White Ape. The beautiful white hairs that adorned the supple body looked so beautiful that it even gave the illusion of dancing as it came and went rapidly across the battlefield. He can use sticks and stones to create unique kung fu and perform aerial martial arts that can change freely. And it also releases vacuum blades in all directions, an extremely dangerous beast. This is the White Ape. The White Ape used monstrous arts and was even close to destroying the entire Imperial army. After wreaking havoc for an hour, it left like a gust of wind, leaving a comment and saying it will come back. For the next 2 days, the White Apes would repeatedly come over and attack regularly. One by one, the Imperial army's own members fell. He took out his pride as a soldier of the Empire and fought desperately against this beast, and finally lost the battle. The sniper team's shots were all blocked by the storm, and even the magic that could make the opponent weaker or attach an abnormal state was not spared. Those effects were all blocked by the demon magic. The magic gun's attack magic was also not powerful enough to break the barrier formed by the wind. When we look at close-quarters combat, the mechs are the elite of the Imperial army, and even their fortified soldiers are beginning to be toyed with. It was like dealing with small children, those elite people being teased by the White Apes. Then when the time comes, the White Ape will retreat. In fact, the White Ape's reason was simple: he wanted to wait for the Imperial army's soldiers to gather. At first the Imperial army was indignant, thinking the other side underestimated them, but now began to pray that the opponent would retreat. And the number of survivors is now down to 1,000. How long will I live? Wondered a soldier. How did things get to this point? It doesn't matter how many times you think about it or not. The soldier's eyes caught the remnants of the White Ape. Where did it all go wrong? It's too late to think of the answer, the soldier's eyes are already dark. 83rd floor, this is an expanse of open grassland. While there are cute traps like ground holes, such things don't pose a hindrance at all. The weather is clear. The marching soldiers were also glowing. But the next night, the Imperial army was greatly wounded. At that time, a bright moon in the sky was about to turn from the upper lunar to the full moon. With the moon as a backdrop, a lone rabbit floats in the air. It's the rabbit that can manipulate gravity, the moon hare. The moon hare's attacks were indistinguishable from each other. It's because you don't care if one of your own is harmed that you can give it your all. Although swayed by the moon's gains and losses, even during the new moon period, the moon hare possesses enough power to turn heaven and earth upside down. The supergravity is used to oppress and wreak havoc on the Imperial army. But it's not over here. The night comes again. And it's a full moon in 3 days. The night is coming when the moon hare pushes its power to the limit. 84th floor, a maze of streets formed by stone slabs. The Imperial soldiers who walked on top of them all blanched. It looks like they are wearing out more than expected. Give me water. No way. There was no way to contact the supply force. You have to be patient. Damn it. It's only the third day, but I want to drink water. If I can't drink water, I can't even eat. The reinforced soldier had undergone reconstructive surgery, but he couldn't resist the thirst in his throat and said something depressing. This sight makes one look incredulous for a moment. But he can't be blamed for that. Because of the ability to make water by magic, everyone carries only water from a water bottle. Because they think it's more important to carry food than water. That's a misstep on their part. This floor seems to be so full of toxins that it would be impossible to drink them at all if only to collect moisture from the atmosphere. It wasn't until the third day that they found out about it. Some of the soldiers' bodies began to appear, and this is when they realized that something was wrong. And these poisons are so vicious, there's no way to detoxify them with antidote magic. No matter how many times the toxin is detoxified, one will look back and realize that the toxin ingredients have been mixed in the water. Thankfully, there was no problem breathing, but, even so, the soldiers' injuries were about to get too big for one shot. The soldiers in front of us all fell in pain. A look at them will reveal dark spots on the skin and a high fever. Here we go again. Their strength is reduced and they must be treated. Oh, my God, there's no doctor here. And with healing magic? No effect. The situation was like this, with partners falling one after another. The soldiers of the Empire's generals were beginning to feel uneasy when they saw the situation, guessing whether it would be their turn next. There were small magical creatures running past those soldiers' feet in intermittent bursts. These are black rats that are less than 5 centimeters in length. Because they looked so overwhelmingly fragile, the Imperial soldiers didn't even take them to heart. It's just that. It was a huge mistake. Those rats are the culprits that make the situation what it is. The dark sick black rat, that's the floor guardian on this floor. They spread the Black Death and are the master of the plague. That's what a black rat is. The Imperial soldiers would be completely wrong. They were overly concerned with the powerful magical beasts that walked on, and thus left out the weak, black rats that seemed to die at the first step. There was absolutely no finding that it was the minions sent out by the black rats, and the individuals who allowed the spread of the pathogenic bacteria led to this result. If one of them had a skill like Shinji's, he should be able to paralyze this floor. It's just a shame there's no such coincidence in the world, no such doctor on the team. Healing through magic has a weak effect on disease. It would be a different story if the magic was used specifically to heal the disease, but the magic used to heal wounds is simply not effective against the disease. At best, it will restore strength, not cure. This is because treating a wound and treating a disease, the principles of which are followed, are two entirely different things. After all, divine magic masters who could completely cure the disease were so rare that it was uncertain whether even the countries could identify 1 or 2 people, not to mention the fact that getting them to go to the battlefield together is not possible unless there are special circumstances. In this way, death began to spread on this floor. 85th floor, this is a dense forest of deciduous leaves in which the great Tiger King is walking. While the other floors were able to make a fuss as they pleased, on this floor it was ruled by the king. The tiger was covered with thunder and lightning, the king's name was Thunder Tiger. Before he showed up, the Imperial army had the upper hand, but after that, it was different. They could only defend one-sidedly and were also forced to pull the stronghold back to the front of the ladder. The woods are full of magical creatures. The fighting conditions were not favorable for the Imperial army, who continued to resist. 86th floor, this is a sparse oasis in the desert. Under the sun, the temperature rises. The temperature drops after nightfall and the chill is frightening. The temperature difference was so great that although there was no combat, the Imperial soldiers lost their strength as a result. So those generals and soldiers thought the temperature was the biggest enemy. This statement does not say the wrong thing, but it is not the correct answer. The real trap out is in the oxygen concentration. A winged snake, a pterodactyl. Pterodactyl affects the atmosphere. The operating ingredients zero out the oxygen concentration, which is as easy for a pterodactyl as breaking a baby's hand. The general soldiers of the Imperial Army thought that it was the temperature difference that made them unwell, thinking that a night's rest would allow their bodies to recover, thinking too simply. They just died quietly. The 87th layer, this is somehow a vast expanse of mountains. The laid-back scenery reminded the soldiers of their families. Without relaxing, they think about their happy childhood and dreams of having a date with their beloved woman. It took less than 5 days for everyone to let their guard down. The low frequency of the appearance of magic can also be a reason. Unlike the other floors, it's hard to keep the tension up all the time here. Just by being in this state, they didn't notice. Didn't find the shifters asleep and not up. I didn't realize that anyone who seemed to be awake was really just a wishful thinking of their own. The sheep that make men dream, the sleeping sheep that tempt them. Gentle sheep love peace and deprive soldiers of their consciousness in a state where there is no bloodshed. If seduced by the hallucinatory hypnosis of a dormant sheep, those people will fall asleep and never wake up again. The 88th flue, this is alongside a river in a forest where firebirds live. Incredibly, these flames do not burn into the trees. It will only react to people who are hostile, it will keep burning and it will not go away. It was a bird with a full body of fire, the flamingos. The floor guardian of this land is called by that name. Flamingos and flocks of dependent birds set out to burn the Imperial Army to death. 89th floor, this is the maze of mirrors. This floor is not affected by vegetation. It's well managed and the mirrors are all polished. The passageways are reflected on the mirrors, making the maze even more complex. And none of these mirrors will break. Because these are all born of a magical creature using secret magic. The dog that can wander in the mirror dog runs through it. He was free to run around in the mirror and tease the Imperial Army. His body is in the mirrors, and those mirrors reflect all spells on the user. Even capturing its essence was difficult, and the mirror dog was such a magical creature. Under the light of the mirror dog grows infinitely, and the poor prey is bitten and killed by him. On the various floors, the vicious floor guardians went on a rampage. If it's a handy domain, the floor guardians will be at their best. Even so, the Imperial Army resisted desperately. There will be times when the opponent succeeds in taking down the opponent, and a big cheer will be raised at that time. But all of these magical things will come to life. Resurrected again and again. This part is the scariest. When the situation on the other floors comes back, it will be found that they are in the same situation. Soldiers who learned of this could not help but be discouraged. They had been fighting a hopeless battle, only to find that it was all for naught. Beyond that, who is more desperate? It is said that monkeys, rabbits, rats, tigers, snakes, sheep, birds, and dogs, which are the demonic beasts of the animal family, are the 8 tribes under the 9 tails. Just some cute pets. Those demonic beasts were all illuminated by the tails of the 9-tailed Kumara, and their respective abilities were only from Kumara. The gesture of the 8 congregations assembled was the true face of the 9-tailed Kumara. Nowadays, Kumara is no longer childlike, but rather beautiful. The illusionary queen who leads the monstrous beasts is the floor guardian of the 90th floor, the 9-tailed beast, Kumara. Some foolish and pathetic sacrifices came to Kumara. These people were nothing more than fodder to Kumara. More dead people appeared in the maze. Immediately following, a few days passed when the Imperial Army's 53,000 soldiers stormed the maze. The survivors in the labyrinth go to 0. Chapter 4. Complete Victory. 7 days had passed since Operation Maze Raider began. Maze had been silently swallowing the general soldiers as best he could. They failed to pass the report back, leaving Calgorio to spend the restless hours. The reason for this constant state of anxiety is to mask instinctive fear. There is still no way to contact the other units, and contact with those inside the labyrinth has been broken. At first glance they looked completely isolated in enemy territory. Such a situation made Calgurio uneasy. Still no one's coming back. He let out an angry roar, but no one responded. That's actually the answer. And it wasn't just Calgurio, those staff officers knew the situation wasn't good. At first they sent soldiers several times, returning from inside the labyrinth with information. Although none of the soldiers came back to the ground, they were still able to interact with the people inside at first. It is possible to consolidate the information and get a general idea of the situation. When you enter the maze, you have to check with me at the maze. This time the maze prompts the conditions for breaking the barrier. The 10 men in the labyrinth must be defeated and 10 keys collected. That would seem to get the right to challenge the king of the labyrinth. Defeat the king of the labyrinth to break through. At first they didn't think it would be that hard, but nowadays, they have to say it was bad judgment. According to the information gathered, the lowest floor in the labyrinth is also more than 50 floors. Although the floors were exchanged every time they were full of 1,000 people, the soldiers were still able to enter in order. Thus able to make contact with those who had gone in first, but the first time they were able to make contact, the number of people who had entered the labyrinth had long exceeded 50,000. They repeatedly sent people into the maze several times, and calculated that the floor was probably over 54 floors. Yuki had once revealed to them the contents of the report that Shinji and others had brought back, hearing that the maze had 60 layers. Yet this information was not reliable, and they found this out early on. That was because the strength of the magical creatures that appeared within the maze was simply not the same as what was heard. That said, they said that the king of the labyrinth was the immortal king, and from that point of view, the words of Shinji and others were no longer credible. This was because someone reported upwards the next day that they had found the floor dominated by the immortal king. That immortal king seems to be one of the so-called 10 lords of the labyrinth. Some say the hearsay may be true. Nowadays, no one dares to laugh at those people anymore. No matter how powerful the elite personnel are, they seem to be struggling. Yes. The operation may fail if it goes on like this. How can that be? At the thought of this, Calgurio shivered. The phrase raid operation failure was simple to say, but it represented the death of 530,000 Imperial general soldiers. Emperor Rudra handed over such important general and soldiers to him. How could he abandon them in 3 or 2 times and not save them from death? 7 days to go. There's still quite a cushion before the deadline, and the current Operation Maze raid within the labyrinth should be ongoing. He would just have to trust these people and wait on the sidelines. That would have been the right judgment, but Calgurio, no, he wasn't the only one, even the other staff officers didn't think it would be good. The reason why it makes them think that way is because of the existence of the Labyrinth 10. There are currently 4 keys that they have been given. Although they seem to come back to life no matter how many times they were defeated, they still managed to get the key from the 4 Dragon Kings. However, there is not even a single sight of the other 6 to be crushed. The Immortal King was also one of them, along with the Necromancer Paladin who looked like he was his right hand. As well as the Queen who rules the insects, plus the mistress of those beasts. There's another attacking type of wizard, nicknamed the Undead of Ghidorah. The last one he is not even sure of its true identity. If these 6 were not defeated, it would have been a fool's dream to break through the maze. Such conditions could not have been met with the current strength of the war inside the labyrinth. Calgurio thought so, and the staff members were unanimous in their judgment, but no matter how much you bet, it's useless. Yes. That's just a waste of money. And the guards here are disturbing, too, I suppose. So what should be done? There is only one answer. Only the most primitive method of maze planning can be used: form an elite team to challenge. In that case, however, the question is who to choose. After a moment of annoyance, Calgurio picked out some of the cream of the crop from the Legion. He sought out 100 men and women. Only the cream of the crop from each unit is recruited, as well as those who are confident in their strength. Sitting in the front row was an elegant man, looking calm and gentle. Even on the battlefield, his battered uniform is still worn straight. The man's name is Minute. He was the first right-hand man to Calgurio's side, ranking high as a major general. It was the commander of this battle plan that was recommended by Calgurio. Next to him sat a cold man with a cigarette in his mouth. His eyes seemed to be staring at his prey, and his bearded face was so decent that anyone opposite him would be afraid. And this man also possesses no less strength than his appearance. He's Grand Marshal Kansas. He is a hero who has made many great achievements. The most famous of these is the Monster Country Annihilation Campaign. The man in charge at the time was Kansas. Self-confidence may be on display in his attitude, which is rampant. Even in the face of a group of superiors, he doesn't show half a fear in the slightest. No one else around them made a sound to warn Kansas. It's no wonder, after all, that even his immediate superior, Minute, acquiesces to this attitude. Calgurio, personally, while having an opinion on this, is not yet so much as to speak ill of a hero who is also famous in the Empire. Everything was left in the hands of the opposing boss, Minute, so there was no way the crowd on the scene was going to pick up on Kansas' behavior. Other celebrities include Michelle and Raymond. These two are otherworldly visitors. Michelle has a unique skill called Fusionist. She is good at using this power to create high firepower attacks, and is well known in the Imperial Army. As for Raymond, he has a unique skill called Fighter. He was originally a fighter, and that seemed to turn directly into his skill. He is a top fighter who is able to use all weapons and fighting techniques, as well as techniques learned in this world, with the utmost skill. The more prominent and famous ones of these four, but the others are also one-trick pony fighters. The lowest ranked among them have all made it to level A, which is the best among the Imperial Army. These 100 men alone could destroy the knights of other nations. Calgurio decided to entrust everything in this battle plan to those heroes. So, everyone, you've heard all about it, right? Everyone nodded in silence. Although there were also men like Kansas who existed with a disdainful smile on their faces, most of them listened attentively to Calgurio. Our comrades are currently awaiting rescue in the labyrinth. Certain conditions had to be met in order to leave the maze, one of which was still to crush the Demon Lord. If the strongest Mecha Legion in our empire is sent, I am sure this problem will be solved as well. Only pity. That would waste too much time. This maze could not be defeated by the army waging manned naval tactics. Calgurio understood that, but he couldn't say it honestly. Doing so would cause demoralization, so he polished the words and explained them to these ministers. We will crush the 10 lords of the labyrinth and collect the 10 keys. That would seem to gain the right to challenge the demon lord Rimuru. I look forward to your being able to take on this task. I want to ask you to crush the demon lord. Calgurio makes this speech in the face of the elite of the Mecha Legion, who are no longer equaled. Wrap it up on us, Lord Calgurio. For us, the glorious Imperial Army, the Demon Lord is no match at all. Let's prove it next. Minute, the highest-ranking man, replied on behalf of everyone. He posed gracefully and was guaranteed to win. No one in the room objected to Minute's words. Because these people were proud of their abilities, everyone was sure they would win. So much so that they elected the brave man in charge of challenging the Demon Lord. These people don't know the truth. It is because of their ignorance that they get their hopes up. Knowing nothing about it didn't reveal the hidden crisis in the maze. This is the time when retreat is the right thing to do. But it was all too late. Calgurio was too slow to make the decision. The battle inside the labyrinth was over and no one was left inside. He had no idea that the situation had turned out this way. The chosen brave men are ready to enter the daunting maze with aplomb. We were all drawn to the images on the big screen, and we were able to catch our breath. Should I say it's not surprising? The Imperials seemed to take that as a joke and ignored the warning written on the door, and the number of general soldiers sent into the labyrinth exceeded our expectations. That's great. The results exceeded expectations. As I mumbled something, Benimaru nodded along with it. I don't think there's anyone who has to be on guard. One of the reasons should be that the 10 lords of the labyrinth are too strong, but it really seems like it's easier than one would think. He said so with his mouth open and not a slouch in his eyes. He seems to have switched thoughts, this time putting the focus on the ground. There seems to be another movement on the enemy's side. Right. This time it didn't have to be manned, the members seem to have been selected. It's going to come in eventually anyway, they should have made their decision earlier. Then our people in the labyrinth will probably be in a bit of a fight too. Hey, isn't that just what we want? Yeah, that's right. But it's disturbing that things are going so well. Benimaru said the words, but one could see from his expression that he took them for granted as a result. That's not the problem. Since there's no chance of him making an appearance, this guy wants the Imperials to fight a little bit, right? He seems to understand his mood, but he doesn't seem to understand. No, if it's figured out, it means I've become a battle nut too. I'm not like the Benimarus. Such an outcome makes me very happy. And one thing has been said many times, and that is that in this world, quality is greater than quantity. The troops they selected were probably the enemy main force. These guys are likely to break the 10 lords of the labyrinth individually, so they can't take it as a game now. The original purpose was to reduce the number of enemy troops. That part is done. There are only 100,000 or so people left on the Imperial side, and that number alone has been reduced to the point where even the Western countries can adequately cope. Simply put, that's it. The same is true of the gamble, which is to give the enemy a big win in the beginning, so that they will miss the opportunity to stop it just in time, because the illusion of their winning is so beautiful that these people think they can make up for it even if they lose, which sums up the phenomenon. In this case, it's hard to stop even when you know you should. This was exactly what the Imperial Army had written about this time. They had sent troops in repeatedly, only to accidentally bet too much on battle power, so much that it was irreparable. Personally, I think it's great that the purpose was served. It is pleasing that the battle plan is going so well, but the other objective, to force the master out, is not yet achieved. There seem to be a few masters on the opposing side, but none that looked like they could beat me. However, as Chloe mentioned earlier, I didn't seem to be a demon lord yet, and I don't think there's much difference in strength from when we lost to Hinata. No, I don't think there's much difference in strength from when we were tied. That said, I still don't see anyone who can pose that much threat. To be hard to say, only the people Testrossa killed had legendary level equipment. If it's the 11th ranked Tibbs, he might be able to kill me, too. Certainly not the current me, but the one who was still fighting Hinata at the beginning. The result is still no one who could potentially kill me, that's the conclusion. It's no use trying to think about that, and I decided to put that topic aside for now. I care more about what the enemy commander thinks. Things have gotten so miserable that it would generally be right to choose to retreat. What on earth was the commander on the enemy's side thinking? Answer. There is a lack of knowledge of the current situation because of the impediments to communication with other forces. The speculation may be to hold out hope that one should not have and not give up the chance to win. Alas, Master Raphael, the King of Wisdom, speaks spitefully. Hearing it say that makes sense to me. But then again, it's not good to suppress too much in an intelligence war. If the commander had had a real grasp of the situation, perhaps the other side would have retreated. Answer. No. If you do not teach your enemies thoroughly, you will leave a legacy. There is no need to show mercy to the intruder. Utsnarky comments. While it sounds logical and cold, I don't think it's the right answer either. The Empire wouldn't have given up on ambition if it had left them with some full decent fighting power. But if they were completely crushed here, at least for the time being, they would avoid fighting the Eastern Empire. No matter what you do, there is nothing worse than not being able to do it. The enemy also has their family, and presumably the family that was left behind will feel sad. But if one took the opportunity to let them find out how stupid they were this time, one might be able to prevent a fight afterwards. It's definitely not righteous to do so, but at least to guard against petty strife, which I think is the right thing to do. Anyway, it's too late to say that. Unlike Master Raphael, the King of Wisdom, I am indecisive. If the enemy flee, let them go, and attack again, and then crush them again. Maybe I'm still too naive to let my opponent decide what to do in the future. I understand it myself, but that's my nature, and it's not that easy to reverse it. Seriously, I actually don't want the other person to call me, I hate trouble. I sighed quietly in my heart, and at this time, Ramirez got in touch with me. Rimuru, can I talk now? Yes. I'm Rimuru, no problem. It didn't seem urgent to hear her tone, not knowing what was going on. I'm asking you, there'll be another 100 people coming, right? It seems so. The enemy seems to be very strong this time. So, the Labyrinth Lords, they want to ask for something. Ramirez told me about what they were asking for. Request number 1, sponsored by Ghidorah. I didn't expect that there was someone he knew among those labyrinth intruders. The names seemed to be Michelle and Raymond, who are otherworldly visitors. He would step up and convince, begging me to let them join as partners. Request number 2, sponsored by Kumara. She also seemed to spot familiar faces from among the intruders. Yet unlike Ghidorah, not old acquaintances, but those she wants revenge from. This man not only destroyed the Kumara's hometown of Monster Country, but also sold the young, in other words, seemingly nearly 300 years old at the time, Kumara was sold to the demon Lord Clayman. I didn't expect such a vicious bastard to be affiliated with the Imperial Army. That's all there is to request. What should be done? What do you think, Benimaru? Well, send a few more men against them, and it will be easier to win, but it will not be. I know you can't fight a war without knowing what you're going to do, but we can't just accept the proposal, can we? If Ghidorah succeeds in convincing them, it is well to say that even if it fails, there is not much to lose. Indeed, that is correct. It's all about spreading each other's fighting power anyway, so leave those two to Ghidorah. As for Kumara, anyone who wants revenge doesn't want to be hindered. The words came out through Benimaru's mouth looking a little heavy. So to put it this way, Kumara used to be dominated by Clayman using spells. Since the man who started it was here, of course she would want revenge. Although some people say it's not time for revenge, I think it's a good way to vent one's grievances. Instead of holding on to your anger, it would be better to take it out on the other person. For these reasons, I have decided to approve. These requests are approved, Ramirez. Great. If it's Rimuru, it's reasonable. Anyway, we want to spread the other side's strength, so Ghidorah's side we will just let him deal with Michelle and Raymond. This way. Give her the bearded man. I don't know what his name is, but this man's face is nasty. Ramirez was completely on the side of Kumara. But I was in the same mood as them. Let's send that guy over there. Then send a message to Kumara to do her best.
Okay, let her have it.
So much so that I granted their request. As for the distribution of the remaining strength, that man over there looks like he's in command. Lord Rimuru, let that man be alone and leave him to Apito to clean up. Benimaru does not change color to say horrible words. He also said, you can't win with more bullying, but you can't win with less, but he said that he was planning to do so easily. But I went with his offer. Ramirez, that fashionable middle-aged man seems to be the commander, send this guy alone to Apito's side. I get it. To take away his command, so that the enemy becomes a scattered disk of sand. It's a dirty battle plan. Huh? And I turn out to be the bad guy? Throwing the surprised me aside, Ramirez came up with her own set of explanations. Can we give the rest of the 100 men to Adalman? Understood. Although other people's Dragon King treasures were lost, others were still trying. Let's work at this pace until the end. Ramirez seemed a little chagrined, but it didn't help. Even if those Dragon Kings were better off, they were no good against the hordes that swarmed in. Unlike the other 10 lords of the labyrinth, the floors with terrain effects are large. It is true that it plays an important role to find fault with the enemy, but if the enemy side shares information with each other and formulates countermeasures, the advantage will be lost. The Dragon Kings were fighting in this situation, and I think they all did their best. Despite being robbed of 4 keys, there were still 6 labyrinth lords left to lose. Let's ask them to continue at this pace. It's up to you. But you must not be careless. There may be dangerous people in those 100 people. No problem, no problem. I said that Rimuru would be watching from the sidelines, and everyone was in high spirits, and the king of the labyrinth is Master Veldora. That's saying something. This time the maze's condition becomes collect 10 keys and defeat the king of the maze to win. I can't imagine that Veldora would go down. I think that aspect can be taken care of. Right, me too. Then keep up the good work. Leave it to us. Leaving these energetic words behind, Ramirez ended the conversation through the communication network. So next, one last step to go. To observe the final battle, my gaze pulled back to the screen once more. Michelle and Raymond sat on the steps, panting as they drank water. According to the report, it does not appear that magical creatures will appear in the stairwell. Although it's dangerous to take it as it is, they thought it was safer here than elsewhere, so they rested here. They had been admonished by the great general, Calgurio, and were ordered to enter the labyrinth. For that, they have no complaints. Just like Shinji and the rest of them, Michelle and others were otherworldly visitors picked up by Master Ghidorah. They all felt that Ghidorah had been gracious to them, rewarding them with a bite to eat when they fell into this inexplicable world. And this Ghidorah's whereabouts are unknown. He seemed to be leading a special force on a mission to the Demon Lord Rimuru's territory. Although Ghidorah had come back once, none of the other team members returned. I heard that Ghidorah had reported to Yuki that all the people who had gone with him had died in battle. Then even Ghidorah disappeared. Rumors spread that he had gone to the rescue of his buddies from the previous unit. Those who know Ghidorah will find it a little hard to believe, but if it is true, it cannot be ignored. And again, these men, who were said to have died in battle and to have traveled with Ghidorah, were also well known to Michelle. The 3 men were Shinji Tanemura, Mark Lauren, and Zen Lu Xing. The incident was momentarily unbelievable, but the truth was that Shinji hadn't come back for either of them. It was said that their mission was to investigate the labyrinth and that something must have happened between there and the Demon Lord Rimuru. Shinji explained it best when the 3 of them challenged Demon Lord Rimuru and were killed as a result. Among fellow countrymen, there are those who are sad because they are truly ruled out. The same is true of the Michelle and many others. Because they are all from the same hometown, there is an inexplicable sense of connection. Also, Shinji Tanemura is a man with leadership qualities and won't leave behind people who are in trouble. This man has a good heart. Although a bit retarded at times, there are people who admire such Shinji. Ghidorah has been gracious to them.
Plus Michelle and the others also wanted to come and make sure to see if the friends who were going to be good were okay.
After talking to the pals about such ideas, the 2 who fought the most among them, Michelle and Raymond, were pushed to join the expedition. The 2 of them immediately made their wishes known to Yuki, only to be rebuffed by the other. It's really dangerous to act now. The situation is a bit confusing and it's best not to act rashly. I can't tell you in detail, but I'm sure they'll be safe. That's roughly the case. The other side didn't actually respond to their wishes. Since Yuki had said it was dangerous, it should be really dangerous. But some people don't have the means to do that. Letting things go like that, those people would probably run over without permission, and instead of letting things evolve that way, It would be better to have people like Michelle, who was particularly good at fighting, step in, and everyone thought they had a way of handling whatever situation they were in. For such reasons, Michelle took the liberty. Raymond agrees with her, and the two launch their operation behind Yuki's back. They hired someone to transfer them from the Hybrid Legion to the Mecha Legion so they could carry out this battle plan, for there is such a story behind Michelle and them, and Calgurio's order is just what they want. Maybe it's a big mistake to go in there. Probably. I didn't expect the enemy to be this strong. The two of them were divided into 59 levels. These two were unaware of it. In fact, Rimuru and the others had planned to get them directly to the 60th level in a single turn. But these two are likely to hide their strength. There was also the possibility that someone was pretending, so Rimuru and the others decided to see the situation first before they did. By the way, this idea comes from the Rimuru, rather the King of Wisdom Raphael, it should be said. They hadn't expected Rimuru's mind to be so deep. Both Ramirez and Ghidorah had explained themselves in that direction and decided to go along with it. It was for those reasons that Michelle was forced to come to the 59th floor to encounter a fierce battle. We come across things like variable laser beam cannons, sonic cannons, or other scientific weapons of all kinds. Once the wall was down, it created passages that spewed out colorless and odorless poison gas. At the moment, it has been moved to the 100th floor, and all the weapons produced by the 95th floor have been put to use on the 59th floor. The most extreme representative is the magic puppet, which strengthens the human attack weapon. In the Puppet Kingdom, Gustav found the ruins of Amrita and Rimuru asked someone to bring back information from there. The reappearance of the defense apparatus after the study plays out best in this place. When it comes to wiping out the Imperial Army, not even 10% of these weapons will be used. Those are now used to test Michelle and others. Both sides got serious and fought offensive and defensive battles, and those two exposed all of their best moves. Raymond is responsible for buying some time in the guard. Michelle uses this valuable time to unleash a must-kill strike. Michelle's fusionist effectiveness is, as the name implies, the ability to allow substances to mix and also to extract energy from them. Depending on how it's used, it can even turn into an attack of the same level as nuclear strike magic. It was also Ghidorah who discovered this and taught it to Michelle. While recalling the favors the benefactor had brought to herself, Michelle fought desperately. As for the fight, those two got a landslide victory. Faced with a high destructive attack, even the magic puppets and science weapon swarm were no match for them. Only, the numbers are just too abusive. Just the two of them breaking through so many traps alone was very taxing. Just one day made Michelle tired them half to death. Inevitably this would happen. Hey, what to do? Want to move on? Say what the hell? We'll just have to walk the next floor. With so many weapons and traps, it's dangerous to advance with no countermeasures. That's true. But when I say there's no other way, is there? Once inside the maze, they got separated from the others. Raymond was right. In fact, even Michelle understood that, but there was really nothing they could do at the moment. Since it's dangerous to move forward, what's the right thing to do? Even if you don't go down and instead go up, there's no guarantee you'll necessarily leave the maze. It should be said that if one believes that the will one receives when entering the labyrinth is true, one should not be able to leave without meeting the conditions for breaking the barrier. There's no way this maze can be broken. Also, if there is time, there may be a turnaround, but even if it takes more than a month to walk through one floor a day, it will take more than a month. It's not really that bad, but we don't have enough food. The biggest problem is this. Michelle and Raymond did not undergo reconstructive surgery and therefore had to eat. The water part should do the trick, but the grain is only 20 days old. If they didn't have magical creatures lurking on that floor like the one just now, they wouldn't have been able to resort to eating monster flesh and blood. They may not last even 3 weeks at this rate. It's only been a day since they broke into the maze. The situation was already desperate, with a sense of unpredictability. However, the two of them didn't give up. After all, the two of them had one more purpose, which was to gather information about their benefactor and friend. If they give up on this side, then they should never have entered the maze in the first place. By the way, someone sent this to us before we came in. Do you think you can trust it? Pointing one side of his throat, Michelle asked Raymond so. His finger pointed to a piece of jewelry that was to be carried out before the maze invasion battle that Calgurio had handed them. I heard that it's a test piece produced by the development department, modeled after the resurrection props that Ghidorah brought back. I've heard that there is this: even if you die in the labyrinth, you can still come back to life, but Michelle doesn't believe it. Of course I can't believe it. Even if it does come back to life, then where will we come back to life? That's true. If we will come back to life on the spot, we will run to the magical creature that killed us. This part of the experiment hasn't even been done yet, has it? Right. Seems like they're going to experiment with us. Besides, why hang it around your neck? Isn't that the bracelet I heard you brought back? That means the Empire's technology isn't mature enough. Since this is a replica of the duck that was rushed to the shelves, someone explained to them that the size became larger. Yet this made both of them even more suspicious. I am not even willing to accept the idea of handing over my life to an imitation, as a matter of common sense. It is only the chosen ones that we prepare such things for them. I'm bullish on you guys and think something like this is worth delivering to you. In this way, Calgurio has polished the words in his explanation, which in turn means that he has not confirmed what will happen if he uses them, also not for the soldiers at the end. The results won't be known until it's used. At least if there is experimental data, then they are willing to believe it, but only if they are going to be experiments themselves, idiot. If you die first, then I can confirm what happens when I use it. That joke's not funny. At least I'm not going to rely on that kind of stuff. Raymond gave a practical response. After all, the original version of such a thing, the resurrection bracelets, came from the power of the demon lord, right? Don't you think a fate like this will make the other party angry? As Raymond continued to pick up where he left off, Michelle seemed to share this, shrugging her shoulders in agreement. The premise of the action is that there is no way to be resurrected from the dead, a conclusion that both rightly draw. All that can be counted on is their strength. So the two stood up with bitter smiles on their faces. Want to go? Right. Now that it's all come down to this, we can only move forward. If it doesn't work out, people will forgive us. Will it? Shinji would have laughed, but he... Please stop. It's hard to forget. Yeah, sorry. He's even scarier than the maze. Hey, how can you speak your mind just because the other person can't hear you? But I also agree that that's it. Right? I really admire Shinji's retardation. People are so passionate about him, but they are completely ignored. I agree. But that's the way it's gonna be. About that, actually, he's also, just that. Also, thinking about it this way makes you think that Shinji isn't easy either. Maybe he'll survive if he doesn't do anything to save his life. Yeah, that's it. A smile appeared on the two men's faces. Even in these circumstances, there is hope and a clear sense of which way to go. With cheerful smiles on their faces, the two men began to walk down the steps. There was absolutely no telling who would be waiting for them ahead. Immediately following. Hello, you. Michelle, and Raymond, there's something I'd like to discuss with you too. Right. Because this thing is really doing you guys a lot of good, it doesn't hurt to listen. You're supposed to be listening. Seeing the trio of Shinji and others who they wanted to save come out to greet themselves, Michelle and Raymond were surprised to the point of stiffness. Well, you guys seem surprised. I'd like to ask you too. Can you hear us out first? There was also a huge magic doll towering in front of us, and a nostalgic sound came from inside. It must be right that the owner of the voice was the one who had been kind to Michelle and them, Ghidorah. You're still alive? shall we say, what's going on? Ghidorah and the others are going to start docking to convince each other. The two were in turmoil, and it only took a little more time to convince them. It looked like Ghidorah had them convince each other with such ease and simplicity that it was surprising. Shinji said they would not take part in this war, and even they ran to be lobbyists. Presumably, their efforts were not in vain, and without argument, the other just agreed. The two, Michelle and Raymond, were both disciples of Ghidorah and friends of Shinji. They were frantically tested for strength at the 59th level, and the scarier one was Michelle. This one's skills are foul. It looks like she flicked something with her fingers and the result was a small explosion, a nuclear explosion that could be confined to a specific area. The response was small, but powerful to the point of no return. The unique technology of the fusionist, the ability to denature the substance and fuse it with other substances. The way to use it is to let the tiny shattered stones spoil and then throw them at the enemy, causing them to explode. Even if you have to use something like a barrier to bullet the gravel, it will still explode when it falls to the ground. It could have been avoided if it had been a clever bounce. However, the gravel used by Michelle is small enough to be bounced with a fingernail, so it's not easy to actually bounce. The preconditions are such that it would be difficult to bounce it off the ground. It's so vicious. Using such a means of attack, one accident and even she herself would suffer a wave of blows, but about that, she did a lot of research. Not sure what kind of training she did all the way through, but it all seemed to predict the route perfectly. And then there's Raymond, who teams up with Michelle like that. Raymond's fighting skills were great, as was releasing fighting chi to form a shield. The ability to block out all attacks from the front will be fascinating to watch. Even the blast wave that Michelle had triggered was beautifully diffused by Raymond's shield. They're a great duo, and the two characters fit together nicely. It doesn't look like anyone else has changed either, it must be them personally. There was also no sign of the spirit being manipulated, and it seemed that their purpose for coming this time was to save Ghidorah and Shinji. Both seem trustworthy, and it's really great to be partners in earnest. In order for the two who became partners to take some time to study for the time being, the intention was for them to work under Shinji and the others. While it should be used without fear of their betrayal, it's better to take precautions first. Let's look at the situation first, and then compare them to Shinji and let these two people get promoted. Things were going well up to the 60th floor. Then come to the 70th floor. It is hilly and there are about 100 people gathered together. At first it all seemed a bit fuzzy, but now that the day had passed, they had all calmed down. Above the hills there was a place of great visibility, where these men camped, and several scouts were sent to scout in various places. They don't seem to be planning to act right away and feel very deliberate. Just the commander running off to somewhere else, but it's amazing that they can still correspond so calmly. It should be said that the warriors are outstanding in the various units. Thought they'd panic even more. No, that's the way it should be. They crafted a clear chain of command from the beginning, even if the commander wasn't there. Unlike me, Benimaru gives commentary lightly. If the chain of command is chaotic, how can operations be carried out? Someone must be found to lead. Of course this has to be clearly laid out, I can understand that, but as a matter of course the people who are gathered here have been brought here on a temporary basis. Yet they were able to find a replacement for the commander right away, which I secretly admired despite being the enemy.
Are we okay here?
Of course. Even without me, there is the Green Legion, and underneath Green Legion, there are excellent talents standing by. Tactical theory is also a must for the Kurenai, and everyone can be a commander. Oh, you're so confident. Even I didn't learn those. At what point did they learn them? That's good. What do you think their purpose is? The chain of command of our army was left to Benimaru and the chiefs of the various corps. I'm going to care about that won't help much, so I'm going to come back to the reality side now. About the Imperial General soldiers who laid out the 70th floor. Their purpose must have been to find out if there were any survivors on the other floors. That's on their bad luck. The rest of the floor is a different story, and this one leaves no trace. Benimaru replied as if he was sympathizing with those enemies. Hearing that, I also understood. I know there are no survivors on the Imperial side, but one of their purposes is to find companions. Meeting up with survivors to increase combat power is a reasonable move from a combat standpoint. But now that it was known that it was pointless for them to do so, there was no point in waiting for them to act. Shall we let Adalman attack? When I said so, Shion nodded vigorously along with me. It looked as if she was feeling very bored and she herself was eager to strike out. Even so, as long as there were still enemies left in the maze, she was responsible for protecting me. Even Shion understood this, so she wanted to finish the matter sooner rather than later and go outside to fight. That's right. There's no way to get any great information if you keep watching. Seeing this look on Shion's face, Benimaru said with a dark smile. Instructions to Adalman follow. My God, let me behave. It seems that Shion wasn't the only one who was looking forward to fighting. Adalman had also been preparing his army to meet the Imperial army early on. Adalman and the others continued their winning streak, seemingly intent on taking advantage of the situation to win even the final battle. Then go for it. Yes. The encouragement I gave became a signal for war. Adalman and then rest came in force and opened the closed door and struck at it. Then an hour passed. A startling sight appeared before his eyes. There were only 3 survivors left on the Imperial side. It's just that the only ones who have survived on our side are also Adalman, Albert and the Necromancer Dragon. It's now a 3-on-3 showdown. The other remaining nearly 100 people were all killed along with the necromantic army, and these guys couldn't wait for reinforcements. Wait 3 hours before the army of the dead comes back to life, and when I think about it, I'll be able to determine the winner. However, Kufa-fu-fa-fu. Interesting people have emerged. I'd like to fight them too. Rarely do Diablo and Shion give their testimonials. Such a powerful warrior was mixed up in the enemy army, and there were 3 others. One was a gentle-looking male swordsman. The opponent is fighting Albert. The other person is the Wizard of Beauty. In a magical showdown with Adalman. There was also a tall warrior of stature. The power of one man alone held the Necromancer Dragon. Seeing the opponent summon the familiar glowing armor to wear on his body, it must have been a partner who was previously killed by Testarossa and possessed legendary equipment. The styles are uniform and definitely belong to the same organization. That swordsman is so strong that he's intimidating. I never thought he'd be on equal footing with Albert. The battle between Albert and the man, both of them used a rare divine skill. Each belonged to the genre of equipping swords and shields, and their strengths were somewhere in between. Like Benimaru said, it's true to say that those two are comparable in strength. This guy seems to be more than the man who was beaten down by Testarossa. Maybe this guy's ranking is up front, too. Kufa-fu-fa-fu. In the face of an opponent of that level, the magic was surprisingly at the disadvantage. That said, Diablo. Regardless of the holy and magical attributes, that armor can resist all magic. It's no wonder it's working against Adalman. Shion's comments hit the nail on the head. Although Adalman had the additional skill Holy Demon Reversal, that legendary level defense was so foul that it could resist almost all magic. If you want to break through, you can only use the strongest magic such as Reiko Bad Destruction. Adalman would have used it, too, but the opponent wouldn't let him. One can only hit a break with some random magic and then attack while they're at it. But they seem to be thinking the same thing about each other, and the two sides are currently deadlocked. Don't forget that last man. This guy can't be taken lightly either. After all, he could deal with the Death Spirit Dragon by himself alone. This guy gives up to win. Because the regeneration power of the Necromancer was too strong, he had already seen that it was impossible to completely defeat the Necromancer. He believed that his partner would win and always took the pragmatic route when fighting. In fact, without this guy's effort, the the winner would have been obvious. The Death Spirit Dragon was a monster that even Sue couldn't defeat. Facing such an opponent and being so belligerent, it was more difficult than expected. What do you think? When I finished asking, all three gave different answers. The strength of the theory is that Albert is better. But he is poorly equipped and should lose this battle. Adalman is too eager to get ahead of himself. If he had been calm, he would have won by now, and there was no way to deal a fatal blow to his opponent. If Albert is defeated at this time, they will be defeated in one fell swoop. They can only win. How can they be defeated? Three people with three views. Should I say that the answer of only Shion is strange? Benimaru and Diablo's views are very similar. They both think that Adalman and the rest will lose. In contrast, Shion just thought that one spirit could conquer all. That's not called an opinion, it's called a wish. So they might lose, huh? That doesn't seem good. Anyway, even if Adalman and the others lose, there are still 10 others on this side. And I won't lose if I'm on the field, so it should be fine, of course. I will also defeat the others, so rest assured, Lord Raimaru. Benimaru is so confident and feels as if there is a solution to whatever problem he encounters. Shion is still the same. As much as it was tempting to ask her what her basis was for saying something like that, she couldn't have come up with a basis, I suppose. It's true that there is a Shion style, so let's just accept it. Lord Raimaru, you needn't worry. The 10 lords of the labyrinth also have Lord Veldora's apprentice, Zijin, at their head. As long as he sits, there's no need to even bother Lord Veldora. One side giggled and Diablo so responded. It's rare for Diablo to compliment someone.
That should make it okay, which reassures me a bit.
While we're at it, the win-loss showdown seems to be getting better. In time, Adalman and the rest will win. We were hoping for the same thing, but unfortunately the enemy seems to have noticed. It looks like you're going to stall for time to break through, but it seems too much of a stretch. Get me serious, you guys go to the other world and show off with this thing. The Scandinavian man facing Albert, who was an enemy, shouted the words. At this point in time, does he have a killer weapon? Before you guys die, let me give you a name. My name is Krishna. A Knight of the Empire, 17th in the Imperial Order of the Imperial Kaiser's Guard. I am Rhea, the 94th in line. 35th in line, Bazan. Ah, is it really the Imperial Emperor's Knights of the Guard? I heard about it from Jadora's side, and it looks like the members inside are really good. The man who had been beaten down by Testarossa was ranked 11th, and thought the one called Krishna would be ahead of him. Originally I thought strength was proportional to ranking, but it doesn't seem so. It felt like Rhea was more strutting than Bazan again, and explaining in that direction should be right. These aside, the point is who wins and who loses. Seeing Krishna and the others had reported their names, Adalman and the rest also seemed to have renewed their fighting spirit, thought that would turn the tide. Unfortunately things didn't go so well. The key to victory lies in this battle between Krishna and Albert. Krishna's sword slashes Albert's grudge sword, curse sword. Whether to say slash or crush, it's all in the difference in weapon performance. That spirit sword was also an excellent escape crafted by Kurobi. The average person doesn't have access to it, but it's the best weapon for Albert. Yet Krishna's sword belongs to the legendary class. Repeated chops gradually accumulate damage to the opponent's weapon, crushing it with the last breath. That seems to be the kind of combat that Krishna is good at. It's a good thing that Light can confirm this, even though it doesn't ask about the process but only about the results. Just like that, the loss of the weapon defeated Albert. Once the forward was lost, Adalman was momentarily at the disadvantage. Not at all like a defender, he played flashy, unexpectedly sticky, but still got pinned down for it and ended up losing the game. The battle ended when the last 3 launched simultaneous attacks to wipe out the necromancer. If Albert's sword hadn't broken, the outcome would have been different. And in the face of someone who is good at magic, It's too much to overcome with the fighter's fists and feet, so I don't plan to hold him responsible for his defeat. Instead, I'd say that Krishna's ability to draw out the opponent's killer points makes me want to praise well done. As it turned out, things went exactly as Benimaru and Diablo had expected. 2 keys were also snatched by people, but there was nothing that could be done about it. This is the time to praise your opponent for a good fight. So, in the face of 3 people like Krishna, we suffered a bitter defeat. Anyway, it's all over, just reflect on it afterwards. Now to go to the next stage. The big screen illuminates the battle situation on the 79th floor, and the battle situation on the 90th floor. Both sides are getting better and better in terms of wins and losses. Kumara's reaction was too intense. Since the bearded man was the one she wanted her revenge on, it was no wonder she was particularly keen. Relatively, come and see Apito. This side is again a surprisingly tight race. That being said, Apito is now so strong that she is on a par with Hinata, who has no use for magic. To be able to fight a tie with such an Apito would mean that the man who looked like a commander was also very powerful. This guy also looks to be a Scandinavian man, and seems to be no slouch in terms of strength compared to that Krishna from a while ago. I wonder who wins and who loses in the end. We all watched nervously, our eyes firmly on the big screen. Major General Minute wore his proud suit straight and walked leisurely through the maze. The style is the same as that of a regular general, but the material is different. Each silk thread is specially selected and is a magically infused fad. This set alone was enough to rival the annual salary of the Sioux officer class. It was high class, and it was guaranteed to be comfortable to wear, to the satisfaction of even the Minute who loved to dress up. Minute the man just loves grace. Because of his nature, he had a lot of complaints about this battle plan. The so-called war should be about gathering overwhelming war power to suppress the enemy, with the goal of winning without a fight. How can there be a sacrifice, plus the fact that it was caused by our army's own initiative, that would inevitably call into question the ability of the commander? It was because Minute thought so that he thought this battle plan would fail before it came out. But, well, there's no way to tell the truth as a matter of course, and that's the sadness of being an official. Even with such a grumble on his lips, Minute had an arrogant smile on his face. The men of Kansas are usually very visible, so no one noticed him. In fact, Minute himself is one of the most important warriors in the Imperial Army. He is not so weak-minded as to give up fighting in the middle of a war because he violated his own aesthetics. Then again, the demon Lord Rimuru is also very evil-hearted. Although it was natural to take such a ploy, I did not expect to fly only me, the commander, to another place. In that case, the warriors who came here this time might also be broken by a few of them individually. But the Kansas kid will survive, after all. Not caring even if it was overheard by others, Minute began to mutter to himself. Contrary to what he had said, the look on his face was one of amusement. It's no wonder, Minute hasn't been this excited in a long time. Falling into such a dangerous situation was the first time in one's life. As far as his position is concerned, there are few opportunities to allow him to be pro-front. Minute didn't climb up the ladder hard, but because he was a nobleman and belonged to the upper class. In fact, if left from the army, he could have had more outlets than Calgurio. He also has contacts in the political world and has built his own faction. The reason such a minute remains in the army to this day is because he is very belligerent by nature. Minute loved seeing the blood. This time he gets his chance and plays to his heart's content. Thinking about this side, he couldn't help but have a smile on his face. Such a Minute was thrown to the 78th floor, one floor up in the Apito Dominion. The reason is that in order to analyze Minute's strength, one has to observe first. So Minute went to the floor below like nobody's business, fixing the bugs while he went. Really, I hate bugs. The mere sight of those feet moving around was sickening. We have to get the hell out of here. After making a grand entrance like that, he flung his hand to the side. This action alone created a gust of wind that caused many of the bugs to disintegrate into dust. This is the power of Minute. A suppressor with unique skills. The power is simple and straightforward. Up to psychological compression down to physical compression, everything Minute can see is affected by its effects. There's no way to escape, and everything goes up in smoke. In fact, even a wave of the hand is not necessary, just a glance can damage the subject matter. Thanks to this force, Minute has not lost so far. So fragile. The fight was so boring, it was boring. I wish they had tried harder. No one can stop Minute. Although swarms of bugs above the A level would also appear on the 78th level, those were killed by Minute. Not his opponent at all, splitting the win in an instant. It's almost unbeatable. With this power, it's no wonder Minute is so arrogant. Immediately following, it took him a few hours to find the stairs. I thought he was going to head for the floor below, but I didn't expect to see him start resting on his own. The bag that hangs around the waist is a high-class travel magic guide. He took the freshly baked food out of it and enjoyed it. It also contained a set of bedding with an exorcism effect and a roof, and later Minute went to sleep with a flourish. His attitude was nothing short of underestimating the maze. Time came to the next day. Minute entered the 79th level and ended up meeting a truly formidable enemy there. The assassination bees came without a sound. These were Legion bees, all of which Minute had swatted away in 2 or 3 strikes. No matter how dangerous a magical creature it was, the moment it came within his line of sight, it would determine victory or defeat. Humph, it's no match for the magical creatures here. What the hell, it's disappointing. Seeing Minute deliver a boast like this, someone went on a rampage. That someone is Apito. Regardless of the angle from which he tried to sneak in, Minute had a way of coping. From this, it is clear that Minute is able to use magic sense. Then there's no point in continuing to send Legion bees over. Having so judged, the Queen decided to step in herself. How dare you say such contemptuous things, you damned human? Will it? You're a little too pushy, aren't you? To me, you're no different from the ants here. Minute said as he stomped on the body of the swarm of bees that had fallen to the ground. This behavior further angered Apito. I'll kill you. Try it if you can. Just like that, the two great heroes began to fight fiercely. At first Minute looked at Apito very little. He wasn't careless, just convinced that his suppressor could crush her. But he soon found it too naive to think so. Releasing a jamming wave by sight, Minute puts heavy pressure on Apito. The true face of that force is gravity invisible to the naked eye. Minute can have an effect on the surrounding matter, giving gravitational directionality. Using the gravitational pull possessed by large mass objects, the planets reflect in all directions. The clever manipulation of gravitational and reaction forces can cause the subject to burst or compress. To counter this force, one must either have a strong body that does not move like a mountain, or one that emits directional fluctuations that cancel out the disturbing waves. These are the only two ways. Minute has not seen anyone with this ability to date. In other words, he equates to being invincible. With such absolute confidence, Minute unleashed his ability. Yet the sight that appeared before his eyes was different from what he had expected. Humphrey, too slow. What Minute crushed was the remnants of Apito. Apito didn't see past the true face of Minute's power, but she had already found that it had directionality. Presumably a quick move will get you out of effect range, so pretty dodge. I'm sure it's what I thought. Can you catch my movements? Apito's movements gradually picked up speed. This time, no matter how much Minute would use magic sense, it would be difficult for him to cast an effective attack on Apito. Only this, in turn, excited Minute. Interesting. If it wasn't, the fight would be boring. He allows the ability to be fully liberated, centering himself in a force field. And parallel to that, any direction ahead would be in the way of Apito. So much so that Apito had to back off. Although the passage of the maze was 5 meters long, Trying to get past Minute would be trapped by the force field. Gee, that's tricky. That's my word. Both sides won't even take a step. Because of the special training with Hinata, Apito's movements became more pure and sharper. Even the paladin captain would be toyed with by her, but being unable to get close to the enemy would be useless. On top of that, it's dangerous to stop moving. Once caught by the interference wave, even Apito couldn't get out in one piece. Coming out this way is a big mistake. If I retired to the Queen's throne room, I would be able to fly more freely. Not sure how long this man's power will last, but one must go back if one wants to defeat him. Apito so judged. There is no shame in running away. The insatiable desire for nothing but victory is Apito's basic approach. Even after seeing Apito run away like that, Minute didn't look at it as a joke. He had already seen that the retreat was based on tactical considerations, so he instead cautiously pursued it. There's no need to rush. Rather than reluctantly do it here, it's better to keep the power for now. Ha ha ha. Combat is all about grace. But more than losing, I enjoy watching people struggle miserably. Minute thought Apito was beautiful. Unlike all the other magic creatures, you can tell this opponent has aesthetic connotations. It's a natural thing for a warrior to choose a battlefield that's good for them. Minute doesn't laugh at her, instead thanking his opponent for fighting himself and being willing to give it their all. He didn't look down on his opponent, but rather thought about how to drive her into a desperate situation and hunt Apito down while doing so. Next he came to a wide open place. There was a chair on one of the high platforms. Looks like this is the throne of King's Landing. Also, this place is perfect for me to go toe-to-toe with you. Minute deliberately cooperated with the enemy's temptation. At the same time arrogantly thought, so you'll have to make me happy. Isn't it time to end the hide and seek? Right. I'm going to do my best to treat you right. I'll bet on the name of Apito, the Bug Queen. That's really something to look forward to. I am Major General Minute, the man who is going to kill you. Let's move on to round 2. After the big blowout, Minute picked up the pace. Those moves just now were just watching the situation, and that's how he got serious. While not to the point of overtaking Apito's speed, such a pace did not lag. Yet Apito was unfazed. She rose high into the sky, raising her speed in preparation to play with Minute. But all of this was to be expected from Minute. That's naive. Don't underestimate my power. By the time he finished shouting these words, a force had been released. The ceiling of the hall takes on an egg shape, and invisible force fields capable of capturing Apito begin to appear nearby. It was Minute who was manipulating the gravitational pull to get Apito on the ceiling. Boo. Seeing Apito show a look of pain, Minute snorted. Oh, it hurts, doesn't it? I'd like to run you over right away, but you're a little too tough. If it's a normal magic creature, even at this distance, it's enough for me to run it over. Speaking from one side, Minute stepped towards Apito. Minute's strength is proportional to distance. The closer he got, the pressure would increase along with it, and he thought to himself that even an expert like Apito was able to run over and kill, which was why he acted this way. Plus now he had grabbed Apito and was using the power not to cast in all directions. Just focus all of your power on Apito and he will indeed win. Although the fight was tougher than expected, she was really no match for me. Just thank you for bringing me so much pleasure, I'll let you die without pain. Minute has no penchant for bullying his enemies. He just wanted to get high feelings by fighting, and the touch of winning. It should have been purely out of good intentions to have mercy on Apito, but... Don't underestimate me, human. I've said I'm going to give it my all. After shouting these words, Apito, who had been suffering from the heavy pressure just now, flew into the air once more. Her wings were broken and her hands and feet were bent and deformed, and she could be said to have become covered in wounds, but it did not affect Apito's fighting spirit in the slightest. Apito is also hungry for a win. Lord Rimuru was also watching the battle. Even if I'm in a mess or something, It's my job to expose the enemy to all they can do. Ho ho ho, funny. Meaning to see through my power? I'll take your life before that. Minute opened the force field again with himself at the center. Also possessing the power of repulsion and gravitational pull, in addition to being able to bounce people trying to get close to himself, he also manipulates the flow of power with the intention of pinning the opponent to the ground. Minute is looking to crack Apito with a death blow. Conversely, Apito isn't going to be pinned down all the time. She flew at a speed beyond Minute's perception, keeping her distance to avoid being caught by the interference wave. The inability to find a means of attack is certainly annoying, but the opponent's power is not endless. There should be some sort of limit to it, and Apito had been waiting for that moment. It depends on whether Minute will come to the limit first, or whether Apito will run out of power first. And with that, the two sides began to compete for stamina. After a few hours, the situation progressed. Following the teachings of Hinata, Apito continually tried all sorts of attacks. The broken arms and legs were no longer working, and she flew desperately on her broken wings, continually testing Minute for a break. Fire the poison needle at the dead center, flapping your wings to release the blaster blade. The Legion bees underneath were also summoned to launch an all-out raid on Minute. These are designed to detect which places are least susceptible to the intervening forces of Minute. These actions brought the Legionnaire's bees all but to an end. Although she was only a subordinate, it was Apito who called it out after all, and she couldn't help but be chagrined. Even so, Apito continued to let her men launch suicide attacks. It turned out that Minute was hardly unharmed either. The fancy suit he was wearing became tattered and looked wolfish. He didn't have time to care about elegance either, she could tell he was desperately dodging. Well, I guess you're tired already. And so are you. I'm honestly amazed to be able to follow it to this point. I already said that, didn't I? It doesn't matter if it's embarrassing or whatever, just win. I agree. Only I'll be the one who wins. Both are good at forcing a smile. I'm so tired that I can barely stand. Even in such a situation, they were reluctant to show weakness to each other. You guys are really powerful. This I acknowledge, but not without a hitch. I declare that the next attack will kill you. Apito, who was floating in the air, said so to Minute. Although her face was covered in her own blood, it was with a smile so beautiful it glowed. Narrowing his eyes at the sight, Minute also raised the corners of his mouth in reply. It's exciting. Then I also promise you that the next move will set you free. The strength of both of them was all that was left. The reason why it was said that the next move would be life and death was because the remaining power in their bodies was only enough for that. And the two didn't bother about the aftermath at all, taking out all their strength to strike out. Apito takes the operational approach of predicting the movement of the minute jamming wave by changing the track in the first moment. She intends to use the speed beyond the speed of sound to pounce, thereby outpacing Minute reaction time. Minute sees that too. The question is how well Apito knows the power of Minute. When will the wave of interference, invisible to the eye, be launched, and it must be judged whether Apito sees through that correctly before changing the response strategy. She couldn't possibly see through it, Minute was confident in himself. The winner is decided in that moment. The moment Minute unleashed his power, Apito changed track. Yet this point was as Minute had expected, judging by gut instinct, and she did not see the scrambled waves. Winning, Minute laughed. I'll die, Apito laughed too. That's right, Apito's attack was premised on death from the start. It's over, Queen Apito. Minute shouted happily. Feeling the undulations invisible to the eyes wrapped all over her body, at that moment Apito opened her mouth wide, intending to shoot her ace. Queen of Needle, Apito bets her life on releasing the strongest poison needle. It wasn't created with demonic chi, it was a part of Apito's body. Hard enough to penetrate even magic steel with ease. The poisonous needle poured all the power at a very close distance to release, and Apito believed that even the force field in Minute body could penetrate. Minute power compresses Apito, and Apito unleashes a poisonous needle through the force field towards Minute. The winner is about to be decided. The result was a tie between the two sides. While not quite winning upset Apito, she had done her part, and that part was satisfying. Death is not the end. She can be resurrected countless times in the maze. She looked forward to the moment of resurrection and disappeared from the scene. After determining that Apito had disappeared, Minute decided to quietly recuperate until the wound healed. Although the attack just now crushed the heart, Minute was still alive. He won't die from this level of injury, the wound will heal after a while. I can fight a battle like never before, Minute is content. This showdown was pretty awesome. I would love to taste a little more. That'll prove I'm the strongest. Immersed in the afterglow, Minute thought so. His feverish emotions were high, but he was still not satisfied. His instincts backtracked on the idea of still wanting to go up against someone stronger. Wanting to push and go beyond your limits. He believes this makes him stronger. Like in response to thoughts like Minute, there are anomalies going on this time of year. A certain voice rang out. This was a good fight. The voice exuded a kingly air of making others obey. My name is Sejin. You are qualified to fight me. If you want to fight with me, come before me. As if guided by this voice, Minute's closed eyes opened again. He saw before his eyes a dark vortex that appeared at an unknown time. This is going to make me have fun, right? That being the case, I must respond to the invitation. The body not yet healed but not afraid, Minute stood up. And then, undaunted, he went to the place where the other party had invited him. Once upon a time, there was a paradise called Monster Country. It was one of the secret realms that existed around the world, the paradise that people called Evergreen. Nowadays it's gone. It was ravaged by the Imperial Army 20 years ago and has disappeared from this world. Thinking about that day, the nine-tailed Kumara was literally losing herself to anger. Because of her lack of strength, she lost her mother and partner. The Great Mother is a monster, possessing power comparable to that of a demon lord. However, she is gentle in nature and definitely not hostile to humans, a monster with a good heart. Indeed, the king of the monster race, who is hostile to humans, is called a demon king. It was a force other than the 10 demon lords that was a threat to humans as well, right? But this has nothing to do with Monster Country. The monster tribe is the monster tribe and the demon lords are the demon lords. And the demon king was just a demon lord whose race was not even known. But humans, no, for the empire, the existence of nine-tailed Kumara was not allowed. In order to show his country's might to the subjects of the empire, the monster country became a victim to make an example to the others. The location of Monster Country is right on the edge of Demon Lord Clayman's territory and the Eastern Empire's borders. Hidden between the foothills of the Gustav Mountains and the Imperial Forest is a junction to the otherworld. There are resources from the forest, mountain products, plus a stable climate. The paradise of Evergreen is not a place to live in, it is very comfortable. Since they were on the edge of the border, they could not help but think that this side would not be attacked. A private treaty of non-aggression between the Demon Lord Clayman and the Empire. The current state of peace has made people unconscious of the crisis. Suddenly, armed soldiers quietly attacked the monster country. The warriors guarding the village were useless even if they resisted, and all their partners were killed. The mother, the previous generation of the Ninetales, also died at that time. Despite having power, the mother hates fighting. Although the opponent was human, how could she defeat a professional soldier who was particularly good at fighting? Then, the nine-tailed Kumara would definitely not forget that man. He's called Kansas, isn't he? I remember. He was the enemy who killed Mother and everyone else, how could I? Kumara said hatefully. The bearded man with a disgusting smile on his face was a hateful enemy, and even killing him would not satisfy the Kumara. In return for payment to Clayman, Kansas surrenders the youngest child of the nine-headed beast, Kumara, who was captured alive. And all the treasures that the village had accumulated were used to enrich them. They told their subjects that they had removed the threat posed by the monster country. And this supposed threat is really all a self-directed criminal act on their part. In order to let everyone know that monster country is dangerous, they brought in nearby residents and a few merchants so that everyone could see these people being brutally killed. And the fearful subjects looked upon them as heroes. It wasn't someone else who revealed these things, it was Clayman. If the nine-tailed Kumara hated humans, then her power as a monster would be enhanced. As the monster aura increases, so does the rank of being a magical creature. Precisely because the nine-headed beast was a very valuable demonic beast, Clayman determined that the nine-tailed Kumara would become a warrior in the future. Fortunately, Kumara survived as a pet. As Clayman had expected, Kumara accumulated resentment to increase in strength. And was also selected as a subordinate of the Clayman army, the thumb of one of the 5 fingers. Then it was a mistake to let Raimuru pick her up. It was there that she remembered what happiness was, and the contact with the children healed the wounds of her here, just as the resentful enemy was reunited with her. To kill you. I'm gonna tear you apart with all my might. The nine-tailed Kumara muttered, waiting for Kansas to arrive. Relatively, come see Kansas. Even if he was the only one who had been made to wonder where the place was, he was unmoved. Kansas is a soldier who climbs up one step at a time. The Empire practiced powerism, and this man was like a symbol of the Empire, climbing to his present position with a pair of fists. It doesn't matter if you do something bad, this man is the embodiment of the desire to be great. Even the matter of the monster country was no exception, and he believed that it was justified behavior that could strengthen his position and strength. A little sacrifice for the peace of the majority is not worth it. What he does is a necessary evil, and he is not even guilty of it. While greatly questionable in terms of humanity, the strength is unquestionable. Had he entered the battle of the rankings, he would surely have been selected in the top 100. The reason why it didn't turn out that way was because Kansas had no interest in joining the Imperial Emperor's Order of the Near Guard. He valued his own interests more than his loyalty to Emperor Rudra. The most important thing is to have an officer that Kansas can trust from the bottom of its heart. This officer is Major General Minute. He and Kansas, in addition to being neck and neck in strength, were men who valued Kansas and promoted him. I want Minute to get to the top of the Legion and hold all the power under him myself. That's what Kansas is aiming for in life, and he dreams of that day coming and working his way through. He therefore saw this invasion as the perfect opportunity. Anyone can see that Calgurio's missteps were inevitable. No, Kansas conspired with Minute, intending to make arrangements privately first to get people within the Mecha Legion thinking in that direction. Just save the general soldiers who were left in the labyrinth and give them a favor, then a new faction can be created soon. By that time Calgurio would be useless. Oh, laugh at that. How could such a naive idea be allowed to emerge when one wants to climb to the top of the Legion on political power alone? It was because it would not be overheard that Kansas laughed heartily at the chief. The next step was to look for the surviving men with no change of face. As the day passed, even Kansas began to feel a little strange about the situation. Let alone the fact that the labyrinth is filled with forests and deserts where not even a single figure can be seen. Not only that, but not even the magic object was in sight. No matter which floor it was quiet to the point of eerie. Nothing was happening that even made one feel like an idiot for keeping a vigil. Of course Kansas wouldn't take that little thing lightly, but his danger foreknowledge was completely unresponsive, which made Kansas even more uneasy. Well, it seems the intention was not to neglect me. So that's where they've concentrated their war power somewhere, right? Kansas' insight is daunting. He guessed right. Ha 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 ha, I didn't expect to be greeted with such a big show of joy. Then I'll make myself at home, if you'll excuse me. Doing things sprightly enough, that's what Kansas is good for. Thinking that even if there was a trap, so what, just destroy it, he started running, wanting to head for the floor below in one breath. The speed was so fast that even the wind couldn't keep up. Kansas ran wild all the way. You can move several meters just by stepping on the ground, only to come to the stairs in a flash. A few hours passed. Something appeared in front of Kansas, and it was the gate of a vast oceanarium. The styling is luxurious, as if it would bring a sense of oppression to the visitor. Immediately after, the door opened soundlessly. The battle began. That beauty was so beautiful that even the most beautiful woman in the world lost face, with a warning smile on her face that made people's chills stand up straight. Nine-tailed Kumara went to greet him. "Welcome. You're welcome." Hearing her say hello, Kansas responded with a smile. "That's very polite. Your face is nostalgic. You were the little fox back then, weren't you? Do you remember? That's delightful. How could I forget? Because your mother helped me get ahead." Sparks shot out between the two. This is not an illusion. The physical phenomenon was triggered by the fierce conflict between the demon chi and the fighting chi. "I can't believe I'm saying this without flushing. Ha 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 ha, you survived unscathed. Thanks to me selling you to Clayman, you survived. Thank me. I'll kill you." The killing chi had increased even more dramatically, and Kumara roared out these words. As if to echo the words, the white ape appeared. In order to show his opponent how powerful the chief of the 8 sects was, he began to attack Kansas with sticks in succession. Is it a monster that survived? In that case, let me show you something interesting too. With that said, and without any preparatory action, Kansas summoned a magical creature. It was a dark ape, a monkey with a black fur coat. You are Mother's servant." That's right. If it was true, he was one of the tail beasts owned by the mother of Kumara. Yes, you do. You miss it, don't you? Let him be your opponent. The dark ape is also a magical beast with a good heart. Kumara also has memories of playing with him, however. The dark ape that brought back deep memories showed a fierce expression and bared its fangs. "Have you forgotten your friend?" The dark ape could not hear the Kumara's voice. "Kirk." The ground let out a sharp cry and ran towards the white ape. "It's no use. That monkey has become my faithful servant. About you, he doesn't remember anything." Kansas himself did not participate in the battle. He took the tobacco out of his arms and began to light a cigarette, looking at Kumara with a bad smile. "What did you do to the dark ape?" "Huh? That's a hurtful thing to say. Are you doubting me?" That answer was like mocking Kumara. Finding that Kansas didn't mean to answer seriously at all, Kumara was furious as she continued with her next move. "Moon rabbit, black rat, you come out." The tails of Kumara turned into a demonic beast. That makes it 3 against 1. Once again, Kumara's side had the upper hand. But it was also only for a brief moment. "Come out, mute rabbit, dark rat." I didn't expect Kansas to cooperate with Kumara to summon the monsters. Even Kumara was shocked by this. How? Surprised, huh? Only, I was just as surprised. I didn't expect you, a brat, to summon 3-tailed beasts. Looks like Clayman is pretty good at conditioning too. Kansas said those words seemingly despising Kumara. There's a reason why that attitude is so confident. For the monster beasts that Kansas summoned were stronger than those of the 8 tribes under Kumara. What a pain in the ass. The game is over here. As soon as the words were said, Kansas called out more magic beasts. No way. Even the dark tiger and dark snake are called out. Only stronger than the individual strength of each one, those magical beasts under Kansas. It's no wonder. The mother of Kumara was a previous generation of 9-tailed beasts, and those monsters were her faithful guards. There were 5 such powerful magical beasts. At that time, all of the calm and benevolent aura had disappeared, and the raging instincts had been liberated, blocking Kumara in front of them. At this point, Kansas considers himself a winner. No matter how much the young fox Kumara had grown, There were only 3-tailed beasts at most that could be manipulated, he thought so. After all, even the mother of Kumara could only call out 5-tailed beasts. If it was a demon fox that had lived for thousands of years, it was a different story. Kumara had only lived for a few hundred years, and Kansas didn't think she could make that much power. That's why Kansas arrogantly put out the word. If it were you now, I could keep you as a pet. You will betray the demon Lord Raimoru and come to my side. That way I can spare your life. The tone of voice was less like a bargaining and more like an order. It was certain that you would win before you dared to say those words. Yet there was a fatal misunderstanding in Kansas. The 9-tailed Kumara was furious. The smile